We finally made it to the end of the trilogy for the big payoff, the last battle, all the character stories finally coming together. This is Last Argument of the Kings, the last book in the First Law trilogy. So hello, my name is Zach, and on this channel I typically review science fiction and fantasy books, but I also delve into my other interests such as personal development, business, comics, manga, and a little of everything in between. So I finally got around to reading the second book in the First Law trilogy, and then immediately picked up and went on to the third book, Last Argument of Kings, which I just finished and had honestly a great time. So a little bit more of the backstory. I read the first book, Blade itself, almost a year ago to the day, so last summer of 2024, and it was just, again, all right. I was sort of mediocre on the book. It was okay, something different, but I just either wasn't in the headspace at the time. I was traveling on summer vacation, or I just maybe wasn't just as mature of a reader. I had been reading more, I guess, action stuff like Sanderson, and the First Law is a big departure from kind of the pacing and, well, maybe not the pacing, Sanderson's pretty long, but just the way that other modern fantasy books are written. And that's what everyone said, of course, when I read it on Reddit or Goodreads, that this is grimdark fantasy, it's a subversion of the tropes. But a year later, with all the social media hype of The Devils, I finally read The Devils and loved it. Absolutely loved it. Devils is definitely one of my top books of 2025. And having read that, it got me thinking, actually, maybe I did like the writing style of The Blade itself. I kind of understood what Abercrombie was going for in The Blade itself once I saw it maybe more developed in The Devils. So I read the second book, Before They're Hanged, and yeah, I actually really loved it. I got into it because I was on maybe an Abercrombie kick, having read The Devils, and finishing up book 2. Yes, I jumped right into book 3. I think I had a book in between or so, but when my next Libby hold came through, which is pretty quick actually for here. But yeah, I got The Last Argument of Kings and devoured it in a couple days as well. Finished it in under a week, and it was such a satisfying conclusion to the trilogy, and I'm finally, I guess, wrapping my head around and what Abercrombie was trying to accomplish. And yes, now I see, I think, what all the hype was about. And now looking at it at the end of the trilogy, just to even start things off, if you were hesitant like me with The Blade itself, you didn't quite get it, there's not really a plot. I mean, honestly, that's the biggest argument I had against The Blade itself, is that nothing really happens, that they finally kind of come together with Baez at the end of the book and they set off for the journey. And then book 2, Before They're Hanged, was kind of the middle book where they go on the journey, and then I guess it's not a spoiler because we're on book 3 now, but that nothing happened. They get to the end and the egg that they were looking for isn't actually there, and Baez just gets pissed off. And yeah, the whole journey, kind of this whole, if you kind of equate it to epic fantasy like Lord of the Rings, they get the group together, they go off on their quest, and then they fail at the quests. And it was just so interesting, and I really just got into book 2. So I had to read book 3, and it pays off even more. So what I think I liked most about this is that this is the book that I think I was waiting for as a fan of Sanderson, in the way you have the Sander Lance, when everything just comes together, all those plot points, like a movie kind of, where you have multiple POVs and all the stories just finally weave together for the ending, and then everything converges, and you have this one big last epic battle. This is like classic Sanderson. And here in book 3 of the First Law trilogy, we do finally see that last battle, and the characters finally meet. I think that's what I was waiting for, and maybe that subversion of fantasy structure didn't happen for me in book 1. I felt, what am I even reading? Logan doesn't even meet Glokta. Those are like the 2 main characters that everyone talks about, and they don't really meet until book 3. So it's very different to have these POVs that never really pay off and converge. Like a lot of books lately, they have the POVs, the points of views of different characters, and then of course they're going to meet later in the book, and that doesn't happen until now, book 3. So this is a really satisfying conclusion to the entire trilogy as a whole, when everything finally comes together. And that's what I think I really love the most, besides just the writing style. And Abercrombie's style really grew on me in this book, the way the characters, and this would happen in the first book too, that a character will maybe say something and think something different, and we get that inner monologue. And that's what I think was most appealing about the Devils, and maybe a more mature Abercrombie, again, starting with the Blade itself, and now moving on. This is the third book, and he's a better writer for sure. And that inner monologue, that inner like wit and dialogue, that sarcasm is really prevalent here in Last Argument of Kings, and it's just a better, more well-written book. So I love this Sanderson style payoff. Speaking of some of the characters, looking through my notes a bit, Glocta, who was never like that high on my list. I know everyone does love him. He's an interesting character. I mean, certainly interesting. He has so much going on. But book 3 is really a Glocta book. He really shines here in the ending. He gets these big hero moments where he saves Artie basically through kind of this court politics. He's been in this kind of political intrigue where he's shuffled around and a lot of things happen. And by this book, he really steps up and becomes almost the hero of the story. And again, this is that cool, I guess, subversion of the tropes, is that we kind of think maybe Logan is the main character because he's like the bruiser, the hero, like the guy swinging the sword and killing people, frankly, the Bloody Nine. But it's actually Glocta, the disfigured torturer, who ends up being almost the hero of the story, because he kind of saves the city in book 2, and then now he saves Artie, and he rises in status by the end to be like the head Inquisitor. And it's just really interesting. And speaking of the head Inquisitor, my other favorite character, I don't know if I'd rank him this way. I think Logan's still number 1 for me, but number 2 is the puppet master. We find out, this is the big spoiler reveal, and maybe not a spoiler nowadays, but Baez is, I loved him in the first book. He was really one of the driving factors for me to finally get back into this, because when we met Baez, again, I love Lord of the Rings. I grew up on Lord of the Rings. I think a lot of fantasy readers did. So you have this Gandalf figure, and you kind of think he might be like Gandalf, but of course in book 1 you realize he's sort of is, sort of isn't. You're not really sure what to make of Baez. And then in book 2 you kind of see, especially at the end, that Baez is really something different. And then in book 3 it's like, this is he a Sauron? Is he the one pulling the strings? He's kind of like, he's Saruman. He's behind everything, but he's a wizard. And interesting for me, like, I was kind of theorizing as I was reading this, like, what's the reveal going to be with Baez? You kind of get this feeling that, something's off with him. He's either going to turn out to be the bad guy that I thought maybe he was, the big evil guy, but like reincarnated, changed names. We know he kind of like can shapeshift and get younger. So I was really trying to figure out what his deal was, which kept it interesting. Because every time Baez was in the scene, I was like, okay, are we going to find out some deep dark secret? When the two kind of wizards interact at the house with Farrell, and kind of like when they find the seed, you kind of get this feeling that something's happening, that there's gonna be some reveal that Baez apparently did, I think we learned for truth, kill people. His love, he kind of killed it for his own reasons. But I thought maybe he was going to turn out to be like the evil guy in disguise, or some kind of maybe that's too cliche. So again, this is maybe the great writing. That's what I loved about it, because it didn't go down that. So it did subvert even my expectations of, he's got to be the bad guy, right? But no, actually, he's not really the bad guy, but he's the guy behind the scenes pulling the strings, and he installs Glocta to carry out his duties while he's off on his next adventure, guiding like the secret hand, guiding the world. It was so trippy, and I loved it. So I really love Baez. And then to talk, of course, about Logan, who is obviously, if you say one thing about Logan, say he's a great, well-written character. I love Logan. Logan's probably my favorite. Number 2, Baez. Number 3, Glocta. Just Logan was great, and all his scenes, his interaction with Pharaoh a lot, and it just everything in the ending. It was such another subversion of the tropes, where you expect he's again sort of the main character, even though it's hard to say who exactly is the main character. But Logan's definitely a focus. And then at the end, he just jumps out the window. We don't know if he lives or dies. And it's just such a great way to write with that ambiguity, to kind of go out with a bang, go with a flash, end on a high note, like you'd like you'd hear on Seinfeld, end on a high note, leave on a high note. It's such a great ending for Logan. You don't know what's going on next. Is he going to be back? Did he survive? Yes, you hope he survived, but maybe subversion, he didn't survive. So it was just a great story with every scene Logan was in. He kind of had his epic battle where he fought the Forsaken, the giant monster guy. He kind of powered up, and you don't really know what the magic he was using. It's kind of because he kind of has this spirit connection, and he's interacted with the spirits before, and then he's like blazing fire. He's fighting. It was, a really cool battle, that Logan's big battle with the giant monster guy to become the king of the Northmen. It was, great scenes, everything with Logan. So, the characters are great. All the stuff was great. The convergence, what didn't really work for me, those are so many positives. It's hard to, if I had to nitpick some things from my notes, just again, the fact that it was so subverted that you kind of are left with so much wondering of what's happening next. It gave sort of closure. I think the most closure we got was Glocta's story, that he's in his new role with his new wife and just carrying on his next story. Logan is very ambiguous. And if any other maybe side characters that I wish I kind of had more resolution for as the final book would be Pharaoh and Giselle. They sort of were side characters in Pharaoh's story. She had a kind of cool moment where she gets the seed and she's interacting with Baez, and you kind of understand sort of why Baez needed her. You had this feeling, especially from book 2 when they're on the journey together, that Baez has some kind of plan with Pharaoh because she's touches like the other side. She's close to the other side because of her blood, but we don't really get more depth into the lore. And in the final critique of anything is that there is so much cool world building, and I wish I knew more of the world. I love that about book 2. To talk about book 2 a little more is how we learn through the campfire stories more about the world and the past and what shaped the world to be what it is now, but we don't never really learn in this book more, and I wish I learned more. I wish I had more of Baez's stories, of Pharaoh's stories, about the magic that's waning from the world and what Baez is going to do next as the magic kind of leaves. And it gave that really, again, this is a positive now, I guess, the Lord of the Rings vibes, that the age of elves is ending and now it's the age of men. And that's the kind of the feeling I had at the end of Last Argument of Kings, is kind of the magic is leaving the world and we're going on to this new kind of, era, the era of men. But magic wasn't really a focus in this book, even though we do finally get some payoff with some cool magical scenes with Baez and Pharaoh and Logan with his fighting powers up. So all in all, absolutely amazing. Highly recommend if you can push through book 1. Book 2 will definitely hook you, and book 3 was a huge improvement even over that, with a great payoff, great scenes, great characters, and it really elevates the entire series as a whole for me. Makes it a little bit difficult, again, to recommend just the first book, but as a complete trilogy, masterful. And the fact that there's so much more. I mean, I'm starting this late. I'm really getting, back into reading, I guess, late compared to some of these new modern classics like the Joe Abercrombie's First Law trilogy and then the next 2 trilogies. So I know I have more reading, more Abercrombie to catch up on. And if you're watching this in 2025, when it's being recorded, which is July 25, The Devils recently came out, and I love The Devils as a new series, a new standalone, but I think it's going to be a trilogy. But the first story of The Devils with the current batch of Devils was amazing. Highly recommend it. So if you liked, as we got a little more actiony into the third book, that's what hooked me on The Devils. It definitely has really high caliber writing, tons of interesting inner monologue and kind of sarcasm there, and lots of action, which I really enjoyed in this book, Last Argument of Kings. Easy 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10 for me. Love this book, and just a great trilogy. I really enjoyed now, in retrospect, the entire First Law, even though it did take a while to build up to that with the Blade itself. So thanks for watching this review of Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. Have a great day, and see you in the next video.